You're listening to the Back Home Network, presented by Home Field Apparel.
And welcome, Hoosier fans, to another disappointing episode of the Assembly Call post-game show, as today your Indiana Hoosiers fall to the UCLA Bruins by the score of 72-68 in a game that saw UCLA pretty much dominate the first half but not get out to a huge lead. That really was because of UCLA's awesome defense, and we'll talk about that tonight. It really held Indiana to a poor shooting performance in that first half, but you have to give credit to UCLA. And then all of a sudden, the first 4 minutes of the second half, Indiana came out, and they were really fired up, led by Luke Goode, who at one point had 10 straight points to get Indiana back into contention. And UCLA would creep out to a 10-point lead, and then it would fall back. And Indiana did not give up, thanks to some really bad plays and poor foul shooting by UCLA with under a minute 20 to go. Indiana was able to stay in, had a shot down two that looked like it was going in from our perspective, and just bounced out, resulting in the 72-68 score after a couple more free throws by the UCLA Bruins to salt away this victory for them and a defeat for Indiana. This result brings Indiana's record to 15-11 on the season, 6-9 in the Big Ten. All in all, an enjoyable ball game for the most part, as enjoyable as losses can be. I'm your host, Coach Brian Tonsoni, here with Coach Bob Moats and Josh Pose, who's up here on Media Row with me, sitting next to me. We'll break it all down for you on this edition of the Assembly Call IU post-game show. But let's start the show the way we start every show, and that is with our banner moment. And for me, I'm going to go back to that first 4 minutes. Indiana's not in a ball game at 35-25 if it's not for Mgbako and Goode really coming out and being aggressive offensively. And Luke Goode was all over the court again tonight. I thought that key stretch gave the fans hope, also gave the team a lot of inspiration, and that team battled really hard throughout the entire game. You know, we've talked a lot on the show, guys, about you never want to lose, but if you lose a game, what does it look like? Tonight was, I think, that kind of night here at Assembly Hall. The second banner moment, if I can put a second banner moment, was the lady with the little. How am I polite with her age? Older,
70s.
Okay,
I'll give an age.
She was in her 70s, and she was on the jumbotron just dancing and going crazy, and the crowd just loved her, and they went back to her 2 or 3 times. And Bob and our fans listening, like, this was Assembly Hall. You know, it was alive down the stretch, and credit to that nice lady who was just jamming out and moving. I hope she's okay for the ride home, because she was moving quite crazy on the jumbotron. But I wanted to bring that up because, you know, in a tough year and all the stuff going on with Coach Woodson, tonight was Assembly Hall basketball short of getting the victory, and it was an enjoyable night here. But our banner moment today, as always, is brought to you by our friends at Home Field Apparel, now in their 8th season sponsoring the Assembly Call and their 4th as the presenting sponsor for the Back Home Network. Home Field has the largest collection of vintage IU apparel that you will find anywhere, and since IU is their flagship school, you will know more high-quality gear with unique IU logos from the past is always right around the corner, like the recent knit sweaters with the script Indiana University logo on them. And it's not just IU stuff. They have over 180 schools on their site now, which makes Home Field the perfect one-stop shop for yourself and any gifts you ever need for family and friends. And they are the sponsor of the Austin Peay baseball team, has bomber jackets from Home Field as their official baseball jackets. That hit social media. That is really, really cool for Connor and the group there at Home Field. So make sure you check all of their social media, their text alerts, emails, get the app on their phone, find out what the latest promo code is, find out what the latest new item is, but go to homefieldapparel.com, use our promo code HOME23 to get 15% off your entire first order. That's promo code HOME23 for 15% off. Once again, that website is homefieldapparel.com. Wear one for the team. Okay, now it's time to move the ball, find the open man, and get some opening thoughts from the rest of our team. And I'm going to turn to my buddy here at the right. It was an enjoyable night of basketball. It was an enjoyable night when I get to sit and talk in-game strategy and stats and everything with Josh Pose. Josh, your thoughts initially on this loss to UCLA?
Well, first of all, I'll take the mic for you. You can keep your hands nice and warm now. First of all, it was a really spirited effort from Indiana from the jump. It kind of lacked in the middle portion of that first half, but that's the start of the second half. You mentioned it as your banner moment. The specific part is Umar Ballo getting on the floor right before that media timeout, diving for a loose ball, throwing it off the UCLA guy, and getting the ball for Indiana as we have a proposal right now at midcourt. Wow, holy. Oh, he's just bowing down to the crowd. So banner moment right there. That guy wins.
Number 3.
He wins. That's number 3 on the night. Wow, that's impressive. But
that's
Indiana
huge.
had every opportunity to get back in the game, but UCLA answered the call every single time. It was really impressive to see that. They had a bucket. They had an answer. They had a play, the zipper play. Got the and one, coach, and we talked about it. That seemed like the turning point of the game.
Go ahead, send it to. Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah,
Bob Moats.
I mean, hey, I'm here. Actually, I'm where I'm at. I'm 45 miles down the road from these guys. We used to say stand up old people. Remember that, Coach? Remember back in the good old days when we all of us students and guys in our 20s would get tickets back when we could find a way to sneak ourselves into Assembly Hall, and there were these 70-year-olds just standing there like, I don't know why I'm here today. I love the fact that now it's they're standing up and they're dancing and they're getting people into the game, and that is Assembly Hall. That's the way that this place is supposed to be, and you can tell on TV from TV tonight, especially in the second half, the hall was rocking, and the fan support behind the team was there, and I would say that the team was there for good portions of the game. I was just going to say, winning the little battles. I was kind of watching this, thinking, okay, and when IU is trying to just win the little battle, and they just keep focusing on each possession, playing possession by possession, and just trying to win the possession, then trying to win the next possession, then trying to win the possession. It's basically the whole thing of get a score, get a stop, get a score, get a stop, build yourself a run. There were a few times tonight where, again, you saw IU would win a little battle and then maybe let up on the other end of the floor, and then lose a little battle and then lose another little battle on the other end. And I would say towards the end of the game, you kind of noticed that they just went on that surge. I mean, you think, what was it, like down 7 with about a minute 20? I think that's what I have here. And
it was 70-63 UCLA with 118.
And that was when we got the technical, correct? I mean, I think that was right then and
correct.
There was when the technical happened. And that, again, just one of those. Anthony Leal made one of those plays, a good hard foul, and Sky Clark Mac goes back and just kind of clocks him one. They missed their free throws. IU hits theirs, and they're right back in the thick of the game. And we're finding, and at that point, we just start building that renew and one. At that point, really kind of shows what this team is capable of battling. Watching Ballo on the bench at the end of the game, you can just tell these guys are still vested in winning. They want to try to get the best out of this season. That's important when you're looking at a team that's fighting to get even considered to get on a bubble. And that's rewarding. Now we are going to, I think, go back and talk about the 8-minute lull. We're going to talk about some of those things in the first half. Talk about how they were fixed in the second. But it's when you start seeing this team playing possession by possession, gritting things out, making things happen. And you had some misses down the stretch that resulted in a loss versus a victory. And was it, I would just say that if you're looking to go in these last 5-6 games that we're talking about going into the Big Ten tournament, and you want to try to make a run here, much like you did against Michigan State, much like you did against Purdue, this program has some things to build on. And I mean, I know it's late, but it's better late than never. Let's just try to get some wins and go from there.
Yeah, I'd like to talk to you guys about a couple things. I thought UCLA was clearly the better team on offense and on defense for most of the game. And I think that clearly is why the game ended up 72-68. We'll first talk about UCLA's defense. And I know this is an Indiana postgame show, but Indiana only turned the ball over. I don't have the stats here in front of me. They didn't turn the ball over. And 7 or 8 turnovers total on the game. If you would have told me Indiana had 8 turnovers, I'd have said they would have won the game. It was shooting, and it was shooting because the rotations of UCLA were really, really good. They were very superior athletically, I felt, tonight. And therefore, they just were a better basketball team. And that's why they were able to get up 10 points, double digits. That's why they were able to withstand here down the stretch some really poor decisions that they made and missed free throws that gave Indiana a chance. But, man, they were going after the ball hard. They were contesting shots. They were tagging the roll and took Ballo out all the time. And Indiana did a good job of throwing the ball back to the lift. And then Mgbako was driving the lift. They did a good job. But UCLA, Bob, was really quick on getting out and shutting down some wide open looks today. And I think that has to be understood. I know everyone's thinking it's offense or this player or that player, and we will talk about it. But I think this one is a credit to UCLA's defensive quickness.
That's a Mick Cronin team 101 right there. They're going to defend you hard. They're going to defend you hard for 40 minutes. I also thought it was interesting. They were actually they basically they closed out incredibly well all game long, and really put Indiana in a position where, and this is again, it goes back to differences in how IU plays versus other teams. The ball doesn't really pop on offense for IU like it does other programs, and we kind of noticed that again tonight, where you're looking to feed the post. You're looking for maybe one option that you're trying to trigger everything off of a post feed, or you're trying to wait for maybe a screen to work, and the ball may stick for a moment, which then allows that defense that additional time to recover. Especially and so when they're in scramble mode and you're not popping the ball to take advantage of scramble mode, you're not playing opportunistically, that causes a problem for you offensively in order to counter them what they're doing on defense. And that's, I think, when IU starts attacking off the bounce, and I think that was a huge component of the second half when Indiana started going and attacking the lane. A play where Galloway with Goode played off 2 feet and off of an offensive rebound. Gallo hits the lane. Goode gets in position, kicks it back out, and that was one of the few threes Indiana hit tonight. Was that one where Goode was just in position off that offensive rebound? But it's because Galloway used good footwork. Now you contrast that to UCLA. They had several plays tonight, especially in the post, where their guy would use a secondary post move, which IU doesn't always use a lot of secondary post moves, a lot of secondary guard step throughs, those sorts of things. And so when you're trying to power through in those situations, if you're Indiana, that's not always a great. It basically puts you at a bit of a disadvantage. And we're talking about a game where you get one more stop, you get one more score, and you're talking a tie basketball game. That makes all the difference. And it's those little fundamental things I would also add, as well as the athleticism, that UCLA did a lot better than what Indiana did tonight. And I think you kind of see that it play out over the course of a season. But I felt like UCLA really did a good job of kind of taking Indiana out of what they wanted to do. But Indiana actually responded well because they did it. You're right; they did not turn the ball over, and I think IU actually won the turnover battle. I think we actually won it by 1, if I recall. So
3.
That's 3. Okay, so yeah, there were a couple down the stretch. May have stopped to watch. So IU wins the turnover battle. You're right; that should have been an Indiana University victory.
Yeah, I think coming into the game, there was thoughts that UCLA wasn't a good rebounding team. Well, they just came in and beat Indiana on the glass 36-33. That just can't happen. I mean, Indiana did get 3 more offensive rebounds than UCLA, but there were some times, even in man, it wasn't even the zone. Sometimes when you're in zone, there's some issues rebounding the basketball. It just seemed UCLA wanted it more at times in that first half, and that's where they got their advantage, and that's where they got their lead and kept it throughout. So I also thought that Indiana just went stagnant a lot of times, way too many times with 12 seconds on the shot clock. You had a 2-guard tandem right at midcourt. What are you going to do there? You're going to drive and kick and maybe force a tough shot? It just doesn't work. You got to run some offense, and that's what UCLA did.
I want to talk a little bit at times. The difference tonight when Indiana played well and when they didn't play well was shot selection. And not always was it, late in the shot clock or whatever else. But Goode and Mgbako were aggressive coming out of the second half, and that goes to both of your statements about the ball not popping and being stagnant. You go back and watch that first 4 minutes. That was really good basketball. Goode was just catching and shooting. He wasn't hesitating, and he was more aggressive at that time. And then you couple it with there was Galloway took a shot, a deep three that I thought was not a really good shot. I don't know if I have a timestamp for that in the second half. That it was tight, wasn't it? And then UCLA goes down and gets a basket. That's bad. And then Rice, I see it in the chat a little bit, and I've been a huge fan of Miles Rice. He's just not playing well. And whether it's a confidence thing now or whatever, but when you have Goode and Mgbako and then Renew coming off the game at Michigan State, and he takes two questionable shots. One was with 17 seconds left in the shot clock, if I remember right. The other one was down, and they still had time late for him to swing it back out. You got to know your role, and you got to know your teammates, and you got to know when you're on and when you're not. And so I'm applauding some aggressiveness by two guys, and then I'm kind of criticizing aggressiveness by another, and that's true. Like, you want Mgbako and you want Goode to be aggressive, and if they take a bad shot or two, they've proven there are scorers. And you feel for a kid like Mgbako missing that shot. It was pure, it was clean, it was wide open. I thought it was in from my vantage point. But sometimes in key moments, it's like these guys want to, they want it so bad maybe that they do it on their own instead of trusting their teammates. That's the difference between a UCLA team and that. Your thoughts on shot selection in general, and that's been a problem, I think, for Indiana throughout the season.
I really think that someone said it in the chat. It was the Galloway three earlier in the half that it was a 4-point game, and he just chucked up a shot, and it just didn't look good off the hand. It sailed short, and it wasn't smart. That being said, if that ball's in the hands of Trey Galloway instead of Miles Rice, we're not talking, even if he misses it, that's a good shot selection for Trey Galloway, not Miles Rice in that situation. Trey Galloway was getting to the cup. He wasn't really scoring per se, and it was 11:46 left was when Galloway took that shot, and it was a close game. So you got to remember that Indiana, they really have the wrong guys with the basketball in their hand. That being said, again, the ball was in the right hands of Mackenzie Mgbako in that spot. He makes it probably 7 times out of 10. Didn't fall tonight, and that's the difference in the game, Bob.
Yeah, and I would just say that part of it also, go back to the schematics of it all, because if you have identity, if you have things that you trust, and Josh brought up a great point early, well, you're not running any softening against a defense, and the defense is basically static and they're staying in fixed positions. It's really hard to get good shot looks. It's really, really, really hard to get an advantage if you're not moving. I mean, early in the game, IU, from the get-go, when they would hit a post feed, Leal did it first and Mgbako did it second when they were running 45 cuts off the perimeter. When their guy went to double or their guy turned their back, there was a cut right down the lane. They found Leal for his bucket right there just off of that 45. I think Mgbako got a shot look. I can't remember if he hit it or not on that one, but I know that both of them had those looks. Now, after the under 12, when they started running it again, UCLA had snuffed it out. Totally just figured out what they were doing, took away that 45, which opened up other areas on the floor as well. I think a lot of that comes down to, okay, so now that's an action that you're running. It's a striking action. But now as the game goes on and it continues, what else are you bringing to the table? When your one thing doesn't work, what else do you have to open up and to kind of get when they run a double, when you get that dominoes, when you have advantages, when you get 2 on the ball, because they were running a lot off the ball screens. They were getting 2, 3, 2 guys, 3 on 2, 2 on 1s. How are you getting them into scramble mode, and are you popping the ball where it needs to go? And it's really tough sometimes to get that selection. As for Miles Rice, as for a lot of this, it just, I think, comes down to there may not be still a level of trust that's not there in the offensive system they're running, because we still, and again, if it's a beat the matchup sort of approach, he may think, I've got the matchup beat, I need to take advantage of it. And it's a lot of and it's not a lot of, okay, what are we going to do? It's like, what can you do, is kind of where I'm looking at it. And maybe I'm missing reading it, but I don't think I am. I think I'm really seeing this where these guys, it's been kind of this issue for a while. Coming together has been a lot slower than it probably than the program needed to be for them to reach their full potential as a team.
Yeah, I just think tonight too. We were up here, and Mick Cronin had his pulse on the game. I thought Woodson called a good game defensively. Offensively, I wonder a little bit if the right shooters or the right things on the fly. I don't know that that's Woodson's forte, is calling stuff on the fly. It's more out of a timeout or halftime if he does it halftime. But I thought Mick Cronin a couple times, we saw him doing this little zipper thing action. Like he knew down the stretch in the last 3 or 4 minutes when the game was tight where he wanted to go to those ball, where he wanted the ball to go. Some of his players didn't quite understand it, and he was not very happy. Kobe Johnson made a horrible pass into a triple team trying to go into the post and gave Indiana a shot. And then, there's a dribble up the sideline where Goode makes a nice steal where the player just put himself in trouble. So, you could have good calls and stuff and it doesn't work out, or you can not call stuff and it doesn't work out. But I thought Mick Cronin did a nice job. He dictated Indiana's offense, and that's what good defensive coaches will do. He dictated. He was going to tag the roll. He wasn't going to give the roll up to Renew and Balo. He was going to give up the three-point shot, and they really had the rotations down. And he said, this is where you're going to go with the ball. I'm going to high hedge and keep Gallo and Rice and the playmakers out of the lane, and I'm going to keep Balo. I'm going to take 1 and 2 things away, and then I'm giving you that third thing. And Indiana at times was able to take advantage of it, but it's just not enough. And that's the difference between Mick Cronin and Mike Woodson, and to be fair, it's the difference. But I'll go back to you, Bob, as we end the first segment, and then, Josh, you can finish up. I did like the alternating zone and man and coming out of timeouts, doing some of that. This team struggles guarding, and wherever that fault is, whether it's the communication from the staff or it's the players or they're just physically not able to stop the drive. The coaching staff now, at least in the last 3 games, is trying to do some different things to stop. Unfortunately, I forget where it was, the ball screen flare that got Mgbako on the guard at the end, at the very end, under 2 minutes, that Cronin called a ball screen, and then they flared the ball screener, and Indiana switched everything because they do that in their man. Maybe that was a call that Woodson should have gone to zone. But, again, I thought at times when they changed defense, UCLA scored, but at other times it changed the momentum a little bit. And I thought, not every decision is going to work out, but I thought, Bob, I thought Woodson did a pretty good job calling defensively, but maybe not so much offensively. Your thoughts, Bob?
2:30. It was 2:30, and it was ATO. It was out of a timeout. I actually had it marked down myself. It's like, because I saw that, and I think, again, offensively, I think defensively mixing it up, going with the 2-2-1 press and the 2-3, going and then coming out of timeout, or even sometimes before not even with the timeout, just going back to man, kind of keeping your opponent off balance, and especially when you're a team that doesn't particularly defend well, and you changing up defenses, changing up your look, changing up certain areas can actually kind of hide some of your issues. And I think IU did a very good job of doing that tonight, especially just in kind of keep, and again, they were going to kind of give UCLA a couple of, they were going to kind of give some threes to UCLA because they're not really a team that likes to shoot them very much. They're very similar to IU in that area. There were several sequences where IU did a wonderful job actually of just forcing them to take long contested twos. The same thing that frustrates us as fans, we were getting UCLA to do tonight. And that's that a lot of, give credit to the coaching staff, but also give credit to the players for actually forcing that to happen. I think offensively, it's just, you have 2 different mindsets of how offense should run. I mean, UCLA, I think early on in the first half, every one of their players scored. I don't think they had a guy over 8 points in the first half. And that's because they're finding the open guy. They're figuring out exactly where the shot, and he's got guys in positions where they can be shot makers or playmakers depending on the situation or circumstance. They also didn't turn the ball over themselves either. It wasn't, IU did win the turnover battle, but I think in the first half, you could count the number of turnovers by both teams on one hand. So that was a very clean game in that regard. So, I think a lot of this does come down to just 2 different styles, and not just styles, but also 2 different mindsets and philosophies towards the game. And, UCLA won out at the end of the game. They hit more shots, but it's also just a thing where schematically, if IU had just been a little tighter in some things, you would have seen a much better result this game.
Yeah, we noticed it actually at halftime, is that no one on either side had more than 6 points. It was that kind of game. And the one thing I liked what you said about him Woodson calling a pretty good defensive game, I agree, except for one part where he had two bigs on the floor and went zone, and everything went haywire for Indiana defensively. Everyone was out of sorts. Everyone was yelling at each other. They didn't know if they were playing man zone. Those kind of things cost you, especially when you lose by 4 points. When you're coming down to the wire, you can't be having those moments, those minute and a half stretches where you're confused on which defense. You got to have a set defense. Hey, on this play, on this possession, we're going to go in the zone. And this time we're going to go man. You got to communicate it. And going back to that and one from Mac, it was a perfectly run set by Mick Cronin to exploit Mackenzie Mgbako's defense. It worked to perfection, and Indiana was caught with their pants down, to be honest with you.
One thing I would quickly throw in.
Yeah, go ahead.
One thing that you're beginning to notice in the college game more than you probably noticed, I think, 10 years ago, the fact that coaches are learning how to exploit matchups much more like NBA teams do, because teams are switching more. And I think that that's becoming something that, Mick Cronin has, kind of figured out. When you start seeing coaches are setting up different matchups, running different screenings to get that matchup, that's something that you watch that's happening in the NBA, and it's filtering down where offensively, I've got a driver on Mackenzie Mgbako. I know we're going to be able to just get it to the middle of the lane and probably get a good look at it. And also, if IU doesn't have anybody to close the back door, which that was a struggle too. I think help side defense was a big struggle for IU tonight also. They just weren't getting to that backside as much as much as UCLA was.
At that play, they had the big up top and involved in the three-man action with the ball screen and the flare screen, and then you had two shooters in the corner, and you had Goode and Galloway. Are they going to stay in the corner? Or are they going to come in? And that half-second hesitation, that's why it was a good call by Mick Cronin. All right, coming up on the Assembly Call postgame show, we'll continue our breakdown of Indiana's 72-68 loss to UCLA. We'll point out some meaningful moments you might have missed. Then we'll go inside the numbers to highlight the most important statistical notes from the game. You're listening to the Assembly Call. Stick with us.
Hi, this is AJ Moye. What's the only thing better than upsetting Duke in the Sweet 16? Celebrating it with friends afterwards. Join Jared, Andy, Ryan, and Coach for the Assembly Call after every IU basketball game. Go Hoosiers!
All right, you're listening to the Assembly Call IU post-game show. Maybe, I guess somebody said that we're frozen. Bob, you got us or not?
I can hear you. I just right now. I just see you guys like you just took a selfie, an inadvertent selfie right now, and it's kind of funny. I might just take a picture of myself here. I don't know. It's like
so is the audio bonkers or?
Audio is loud and clear. Oh, now you're back. I can actually see your mouth moving again.
Okay.
No, your audio is fine.
Well, anyway, you're listening to the Assembly Call postgame show. I'm the host, Coach Brian Tonsoni, with Coach Bob Moats and Josh Pose, and we're recapping Indiana's loss to UCLA. But now it's time for today's meaningful moment you might have missed.
Meaningful moments that you might have missed.
This segment is brought to you by our friends at the Hoosier Ticket Project, where they help individuals and families experience Indiana University athletic events in person for the first time through the generosity of alumni and friends and fans. To learn more about how you can donate money and extra tickets to help create meaningful moments for other IU fans, visit HoosierTicketProject.org. That's HoosierTicketProject.org. We talked a lot about the moments here. I thought that the end of the game segment was really good for Indiana, fouling the right player who missed a couple one-on-ones. They took appropriate timeouts. I think that was really important. I think, Bob, to your about the ball popping, there was a short roll with 2:26 left in the first half where Mgbako came up and he quickly got into the short roll. He didn't hold the screen, and they were able to move the ball and get a decent shot. And I think Carlisle got a three as he got a little bit of action back in today. There were some moments today that I thought were really good for Indiana. And so, that's one of them. Josh brought up the Ballo diving on the floor. You can bring up multiple Anthony Leo plays and hustling when the loose ball scrambles were there. He was always getting his hands on there and coming up with possessions for Indiana, doing Anthony Leo things. I think those are important. Josh, any moments that stand out for you?
I think it goes back to the end of the game. To be honest with you, out of the timeout, Indiana not once but twice went with the same play they ran against Maryland. This time, it worked for them. The shot didn't fall, but it's the confidence in the guys to, hey, we messed it up the first time we tried this in a late game scenario. We're going to go back to it, and we're going to try to make it work. It worked. It just didn't. Shots don't fall. So that's the meaningful moment for me is the confidence Mike Woodson had in Mackenzie Mgbako. Sure, some people might say that should have been Luke Goode's hand, should have been someone else's hands, but I think that's a moment where it's confidence in the team despite it not going down. Bob?
Yeah, I mean, I'll take kind of one that kind of got me, and I wanted to make sure I mentioned. And I know we were just talking, we were just talking about Rice and some of the bad decisions he makes shooting the ball. There was one non-shot that I took that I thought was, like other programs will take the shot, but IU doesn't necessarily look for it. It was a transition play at 11:46. I think it was going off of a rebound. There was a pitch ahead that went across to Rice. Galloway hits Rice on the pitch ahead. And then he tries to force a pass to Mgbako, basically somewhere high of the block, kind of off the block. And it was one where it was a kick ball, which actually led to the under 12 timeout. But Rice was wide open on that pitch ahead. And that's one of those where if you're talking about most coaches now are teaching 0.5 second, basically half second decision making. You catch it, you see you're open, you shoot that thing because you got your guys coming down. You're giving now by passing the ball to Mgbako where they were trying to get it, he would have to have turned, done some sort of back pivot, some sort of pivot to get in position to drive it, which would not have allowed for the shot. But it's like some of those transition types of things where IU needs to be much more aggressive in transition. And even later in the game, there was a situation where they got to stop, and Goode has the ball and he's pushing, and all of a sudden he just pulls it back, puts it back to Rice, let's run offense. And really running offense in that way is not really their strength, especially when you consider what spurred them on to get the big run to start the second half. They were pushing the ball. They were aggressive. They were attacking the lane. They were doing the things they were supposed to do versus almost overthinking, trying to say, okay, well, we got to get the ball to this guy, or, I'm not sure if I'm supposed to shoot it or not. It's a slow lag in decision-making sometimes I think really hurts this team because it doesn't allow them to play opportunistically because it's Power 5 Division I college basketball. Guys are going to recover faster than they are when they're playing in my league, for example. It's just not. It's like light speed versus grandma taking a drive in her Chevy on Sunday morning. It's completely two completely different types of speed of play.
Now, Bob, you have to be able to move as fast as that lady who was on the Jumbotron tonight. If not, you shouldn't be playing ball at all. I mean, I wish I had a video of it for those who are at home.
I wish you did.
Josh has a video. It was awesome. So,
I mean, that woman, I'm sure drives fast on a Sunday morning. I don't think she has a single problem doing that. By the way,
no. She loved the limelight for sure. But, hey, let's go inside the numbers brought to you by Jackson Hewitt Tax Services. If you live in Bloomington or the surrounding areas, you want your taxes done right, contact our friend and Chat Mob Hall of Famer Megan Mahaffey and her team in Bloomington, Bedford, and Martinsville by calling 812-339-3334 or by visiting jacksonhewitt.com. I'm going to turn it to my pal, Josh, for stats.
A stat that came out to me and is glaring right now is Indiana had 12 assists. That simply is just not enough in a 40-minute basketball game. Yeah, it's multiple games in a row where they're just simply not sharing the ball, and shots are going down. He scored 68 points, but UCLA had 16 assists, and then another thing that it's just eye-popping on the stat broadcast, and it'll be on there until the end of time. Indiana was 1 of 8 in the final minutes of the game from the field. That's pathetic, and the fact that they were within a possession is mind-boggling to me, and it's because UCLA didn't score in the last two and a half minutes from the field. The rebounding I've already talked about, but Indiana's points off turnovers really is something that's really good to see. 16 points, because it's not that many turnovers that UCLA had. But I really think that Indiana, that those assist numbers really have to be better.
You know, if you would have told me Indiana wins 16-6 on points off turnovers, I think Indiana wins the game. And maybe Indiana should have won the game if they get that kind of I thought today, I was worried driving down, listening to Inside the Hall, their preview. I thought it was really good. There's a guy there, Feed the Post, Joe Jackson, really knows his stuff. And he was like, UCLA wants to turn, this team over, and they didn't. So that's a positive for IU. It just come down to making shots. And I think for me, that stat stands out as the percentage on the game was 40.3%. It got 62 shots, but if the ball doesn't pop, as Bob said, and the ball is stagnant, as Josh, you said at times, then you get into late shot clocks, or then you have to go one-on-one, which leads to a lower amount of assists. And then you have shots that, as our buddy Seth was talking here to our left, I hope I got the name right, correct? Yep. Okay. He said that sometimes bad shots are like turnovers. It just doesn't end up in the turnover. And maybe not leading directly to points, but it's a lost opportunity on the offensive end, and then the other team can go down and take advantage of that, and that doesn't show up in that. Bob, sending it to you, what kind of stats do you want to mention?
I was also going to mention, because thanks for mentioning the second chance point, or the points off turnovers. Second chance points, IU is also +4. That puts them +14 on the hustles. When you think about hustle, or those those kind of opportunistic sort of second chances or points off turnovers, and they were down 5. I want to note they were -5 at the beginning of at the end of the first half. So that's a 19-point swing on the hustle, which tells you just how much harder they were playing in the second half than they were in the first. And that was, and again, you could always argue there could have been a few more of those that could have popped in there, especially, like that Mgbako putback would have been an example of one that could have added another second chance on this one. They were even free throw shooting. Both teams were 11 of 14 for 79%. So, we've got the free throw shooting that's actually still, that's improved year over year, or maybe year over decade would be a better way to look at it. The 3-point shooting was, again, I think glaring at that point. I mean, they didn't hit a 3-pointer until Trey Galloway at around the 4-minute mark in the first half. But I would say the last one that really kind of jumped out at me was points in the paint was dead even. Both teams points, and that, I think what's important about that is if you look at UCLA and you look at IU, which team should have dominated the paint? I think that should have been an area where IU should have actually had a lot more opportunity, or at least, and it also could have closed them off a little bit, especially if they stopped the penetration a little better.
Yeah, Indiana, the lineup, one of the things I do like is they're playing basically 7 players. Tucker only gets 5 minutes. Carlisle only gets 4. Carlisle came back in, hit a big 3. I thought his time on the floor, I don't know what his plus-minus was on the game. He didn't get a lot of time on there, -1. But I thought, we've always said that you can play 7 or 8, and I think that helps with Indiana being efficient.
Agreed.
They're 1-2 in the last 3 games, and they've been in the 2 losses. Now, I'm not into moral victories. It should be 3-0 if you do some things better. And there's a lot of these losses, as Woodson said in his post-game presser. A lot of close losses. Well, that comes back to how you're doing stuff. And I want to point out, maybe this is a meaningful moment you might have missed, but if you get a chance to watch UCLA, everyone, when you're not invested in the Indiana outcome, the 2 big guys, Bilodeau and Mara, and then the young man by the name of Stefanovic, he only had 5 points. He had 6 rebounds, but he had 5 of those rebounds in the first half. And I really thought all of UCLA's players, and they played, 10, and they all scored, they all had an impact on the game. and that's true depth. And I thought they all played rather well, short of that bad stretch down at the end. But that Mara makes a pass around someone from the elbow that was unbelievable, and his multiple moves, as you mentioned in the post, was something that it was just a thing of beauty to watch. So again, when you're not invested and you want to boo UCLA, which I understand, when they're playing someone else, Purdue in a week or two, watch those guys. I think they're pretty good basketball players. But anything else, Bob, you want to hit on before we move on to game balls?
They were 9 for 20 from 3, 5 for 10 from 3 in the second half. That's and so yeah, when you couple that with the points in the paint, it's kind of interesting just to note how the heck were we a couple of possessions away from this game. That's a tough one.
It's crazy to think that one time it was at the top of the key, I believe we talked about it. Indiana went into the zone and Miles Rice completely disregarded his gap and left Sky Clark wide open for 3, and he drilled it. And that's when you felt like it was the kill shot. I think they made it a 7-point game at the time, Coach, and it just felt like all the energy in this building just decimated.
And Josh,
I think they made another comeback, right? Go ahead, Coach.
Mm-hmm. Back to the little battles. I think on that very next sequence, that's when Ballo got nailed on the moving screen.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yep.
You lose one, and then you lose, and you get out of it, you lose another. Yeah.
You have runs in a game of basketball. It's a team who maximizes the runs. Tonight, UCLA maximized the runs. 4 points better than Indiana is how that happened. All right, coming up on the assembly call, we hand out our game balls and Hoosier Hustle Award, discuss a lingering question or two, and then look ahead to Indiana's upcoming opponent. That's all next here on the assembly call. Stick with us.
This is Jordan Halls, and I never miss a shot or an episode of the Assembly Call.
You're listening to the Assembly Call IU postgame show. I'm the coach, Brian Tonsoni, with another coach, Bob Moats, and someone who really can't coach anything, but is a good guy anyway. And Josh Pose. Josh and I are here at Assembly Hall, way up in the rafters in Section K, bringing you this show tonight. But it's now time for our game balls presented by our friends Allie and James at Bloom Environmental. So good to see them last week at our meetup, and wish I could spend some more time. So Allie and James, if you're listening, you need to call me and then have Amy and I come down for dinner, just the 4 of us. I will definitely be up for that. But Allie and James at Bloom Environmental want to help you protect your home's air quality, and the best way to do that is to stop water at the source. Voted Best of B-Town in basement services for 4 years running, their basement waterproofing and crawl space encapsulation is the best defense your home can have against mold growth and structural damage. Mention Assembly Call and get 10% off your system. Call today for a free estimate, or if you just want to hear Allie talk about anything, give her a call, and she'll be glad to talk to you. You can learn more at www.bloomenviro.com. All right, Josh, you get to lead off with your game ball, and then we'll go to Coach right away. Just take it from him, and we'll come back to me.
I think this is a no-brainer here. I think all 3 of us will be in agreement. It's Luke Goode. That second half was magnificent. 14 points on 5 of 7 shooting, 2 of 4 from deep. Obviously, you want those 2 threes to fall, but it's a no-doubter for me. It's Luke Goode for game ball.
Go ahead, Bob.
Luke Goode is definitely a difference maker, and he showed it tonight again, and on both ends of the floor, making tough plays. But more than that, he spurs a run, and spurs basically he wills IU back in the middle of that game. I mean, you can make a case for Mgbako. I think you can make a case for Renew, especially down the stretch in some facets. But it was Luke Goode was there, and even when he wasn't scoring, he was still making plays defensively. What is there a buzzsaw going on back there?
Yeah, that's the leaf blower. We're going to have to put up with.
Oh man, okay, okay. Didn't know if you guys were in imminent danger or something.
I'll try to mute it here.
No, you're fine.
While
you're
talking.
Okay. You're okay. No, it's all right. I just want to make sure you guys were okay and didn't have Jason out there or something, or Leatherface, whatever. I've been trying to think back to my horror movies. So yeah, I mean, Luke Goode, Obviously, just really and doing it in a variety of different ways too. I mean, hit some real tough shots. So game ball, Luke Goode.
I'm going to make it 3 for 3. Luke Goode, just his aggressiveness in the second half kept Indiana ball game. That game goes out to 14 or 15, and we got another snooze fest on our hands, and that gave energy to the team. It gave energy to everyone here in Assembly Hall, and things just we couldn't get enough momentum to take the lead and hold off a really good UCLA team. Okay, now it's time for Hoosier Hustle Award, sponsored by our friends at Evansville Security Services.
The Hoosier Real Hustle Award.
Hi, this is Anthony Leal, and it's time for the Hoosier Hustle Award. But first, I have some exciting news to share about our friends at Evansville Security Services. They've been acquired. They are now part of the team at Security Pro 24/7, which provides trusted and reliable security for your event or business, from Bloomington, my hometown, to Evansville, where Coach Calvert Chaney grew up, and everything in between. Just like hustle can't be measured by stats, prevention can't be measured either, but it has a huge impact on your bottom line and peace of mind. So let the security pros at Security Pro 24/7 help you prevent a bad outcome today. Visit securitypro247.com to learn more. That's securitypro247.com. And tell them Anthony Leal sent you.
All right, Bob, we're coming to you first. Who gets your Hoosier Hustle Award? For me, it's down to 2, but we'll let you go first.
I'm going to Anthony Leal. Leal, I think, gets it tonight. He just again, talk about the little battles, talk about the doing the little things on the court, and then one of those little things was a big one. Smart foul, and then just basically and I mean, I just think that kind of that toughness that he showed throughout the game, getting on the floor, making sure things were happening. Well, there was that tied ball, I think, that he was a big part of that actually helped spur that as well. There was a tied ball somewhere in that last sequence where IU gets the ball, which buys him another possession. Leal made that happen, in that situation. So, yeah, I'll go with Anthony Leal.
Josh?
I'm going to make Coach make a decision here. I'm going to try to mess with him tonight because of his mean words about my coaching abilities. Third grade basketball, feeder basketball. I was really good.
Josh, I will be more than happy. You can be the 4th assistant at Parkside Elementary next year. I know it's a 45-minute drive and all, and we don't pay anything. I might buy you a burger every once in a while, but you're welcome on my staff anytime.
I only won 2 games. I'm not going to toot my own horn here, but I will say before I give you my Hoosier Hustle, we were playing an intramural game last night that we won by 31. Shout out Galen Clavio for saying IU Sports Media doesn't have good basketball teams, by the way. But we line up at the start of the 4th quarter, and I have our team tricking the other team by saying we're going the opposite direction. We hand the ball off to my teammate, quick basket, and that's what's got us that victory. Thank you. I'm the best coach of the trio right here. Thank you very much. But my long story short,
did he just do
my
that?
Hoosier Hustle goes to Trey Galloway. I think he had half of Indiana's dozen assists today. He had 6 assists today, so he played really well. Didn't fill up the point stat sheet. Went 2 of 7, 1 of 5 from 3, but 6 rebounds, 6 assists. I think that's worthy of a Hoosier Hustle.
Well, those were the 2 that I was going to have to decide on when I started out this segment. I think both of them deserve it, to be honest with you. 6 rebounds, 6 assists, and flying all over the place for Galloway. But as I'm watching high up in my perch up here, I'm seeing Anthony Leal just involved in everything. That hustle plays, not stats, not anything else, but he's diving on the floor when there's a loose ball and it gets kicked up in the air. He's gathering those 50-50 balls. So I'm going to go Anthony Leal for another Hoosier Hustle Award. But, Josh, that's probably one of the better things that you've said in a long time. But you knew I couldn't even go with you when you're sitting next to me. I got to keep young blood down a little bit. Here, I don't know where we want to go with the lingering question. Obviously, this team has played okay basketball, really good at Michigan State, and then just good enough to lose a couple games to really talented teams that are on the 5 and 6 seed line, and you beat a team at Michigan State that's on a 5 seed line, but you're 1-2 in those games, and you've lost 2 at home, now 4 in a row, I believe, in Assembly Hall. Just not good enough for Indiana basketball, and all the. I don't think all the pluses from the win at Michigan State are washed away with this effort, but you need this one, and if not, you're going to need the next one to have a chance. And the chances are, we had the Indiana second team out going into today. This is, they're not going to fall too far because everyone else is struggling as well. But Bob, is this a little momentum killer, or is it just a tough night after a good victory?
Yeah, it could be either one, but I think a lot of it is they're not at a point where basically you got to start stacking, and you've had to start stacking throughout this season. And the lingering question is, can you build off of any sort of forward momentum? Every time this team feels like it's beginning to hit something and start, it just kind of there's a choke. There's an 8-minute scoring lull in the middle of a home game against UCLA. Granted, they're a good defensive team, but it wasn't like they were turning the ball over. They were getting some good looks out of that too. That's just hitting the things like just hitting shots and being in flow in offense. It's things like stopping the ball on or really just not stopping the ball really, but really just keeping guys out of the lane on defense. Those little things that add up and add up and add up where. Yeah, I mean, the lingering. I think that a lot of it just depends on how they're. They got 8 days before they play Purdue at home, and that could be one of those things where if you talk about an opportunity for this program to basically get the hall rocking, get the fan base behind what they're trying to do in the next month, that Purdue game is pretty vital. And they could actually, if they come out here and they actually knock Purdue off, which they've shown they're capable of doing, that would be something that, maybe able to fuel them where they can actually get themselves sneak into the tournament. And maybe just, again, at this point, you're looking at the best, least worst option. And that's it right now. I know that there were some people earlier in the season, people said, well, this team could win the Big Ten based on their talent. You're not going to do that. You're not going to win the regular season. But if you have a chance to salvage something, now's the time to do it. And they have a real opportunity to make that happen. And I don't think these kids look like they're done yet. I mean, just watching them during this game, they're not. They're still playing for something.
Yeah, I don't want to be the Debbie Downer here. I know SNL 50s. I know you were around for the first episode, and you remember it quite fondly.
I do.
That's for sure.
I was in diapers. Be careful where you go, Josh.
I'm just talking about him. And
okay, thank you.
He's been dissing me all night long, so don't worry about that, Coach. The real coach on the set right now. But you can't lose 4 straight games at home and still be positive like we are. I think there's a lot of people.
So we suck as analysts, huh?
We don't suck as analysts, but I think we need to be. We need to pump the brakes on. We're saying that we're hopeful that they can beat Purdue. Years past, and I know someone said I'm too young to remember years past, but it should be we expect to beat Purdue at home. Anything that can happen at Mackey can happen at Mackey. I just make his ears bleed, I guess. But lost my train of thought. Really.
Good at that.
So I really think that you can't be hopeful for wins at home. You got to expect them. And losing four in a row, I think all 4 being in heartbreaking fashion, just won't cut it. Assembly Hall gives you 8 to 10 points, and you're still losing these games.
Josh, you make a good point, and I'm not just saying that to get back on your good graces. I think the world of you. I wouldn't have you up here, but it's not acceptable to lose 4 in a row, whether you play well or not. The name of the game is winning, and the name of the game for Indiana basketball is winning basketball. And you take care of home court, and then you split your games. That's 15 Big Ten wins. That's got to be the goal. And Indiana at 6-9, cannot even be close to that goal.
Nope.
Losing close games over and over again is not a good sign, and we're going to remedy that. We're going to move in another direction, but the next coach needs to be held accountable just the same. And so while our show, we're not into ripping everyone as horrible people or horrible players or whatever. We're trying to be honest. Indiana was not good enough to win the game tonight. That's a great point. But I also agree with you, Coach Moats, that I don't think this team has quit. Can there be better effort? Can there be better execution defensively by individual players? Yes. But I think you got to watch for that coming up here. When is it going to shut down? You've had 3 games now since coaches said he was going to retire or however that went down. And so a lot of times I think you guys, the momentum there to, hey, we're going to show everybody is good, but how sustainable is it? And so that's the lingering question is you got your big win. You fought against Michigan. You fought against UCLA. The word of the season has been inconsistency from the very start. Applaud the guys for a decent brand of basketball, but it's not acceptable. And I'd rather at least lose close games than get blown out by like Illinois and see the Assembly Hall like that. It was good seeing Assembly Hall with a lot of juice, but we should be walking out victorious. So, Bob, do you have something else you wanted to add?
I'm just going to go because Josh really hit the nail on the head here, in so many respects. You got to stop digging yourself a hole throughout games. When this is 2 straight in Assembly Hall where they've actually been boat race in the first half, and then there's no reason. It's kind of like it's like going out for a couple nights and you run the credit card up to $1,000, and then you wonder why your paycheck can't cover it. You're going to come up short more times than not if you keep doing that. And I think that comes back to kind of what both you guys are saying here, that it's not acceptable. And it's also a situation where, you got to kind of, you really just can't sustain that, because at some point in time, that punchback isn't going to get there. Because the other thing is they've done some stuff on schematics, especially these last 2 games, where teams are a little surprised by it. Big Ten teams, especially guys like Matt Painter, are going to prepare for you. So you've got to be, your coaching staff's got to be working overtime. Your players are got to be working overtime in the gym, in the film room. Just working working what they need to work to make this happen, because it's not just going to be there because you want it. Wanting it's one thing, going and getting it is another. And that's, I think, one thing that this team's got to figure out is how they're going to go get it. And, again, after St. Patrick's Day, we're in a totally different conversation. But as for right now, it's a matter of, and that's where I think Josh is right, that whatever happens after St. Patrick's Day, the expectation is you defend your home court, you poach as much as you can on the road, and you go become a contender. And we have that ability. We know we have that talent. We know we have that ability. We've got to bring it together.
So the next opponent for your Indiana Hoosiers is in 8 days. I think it's February 23rd against Purdue. And a chance to beat your rival, right? Now, Purdue will play a couple times. They play tomorrow against Wisconsin. I'm not sure who Purdue has during the midweek, or they have the time off as well. We're looking that up for you. Purdue plays Wisconsin. Then they travel to Michigan State on Tuesday. So they have 2 huge games, and then just 4 days to get ready for Indiana. That's a big game. It's a big game. I'm not one to talk. I don't think Indiana really has a chance to make the tournament. I know some of my bracket buddies put them in as last in. I know we moved them up to first 4 out. But I think when it gets down to evaluating, the win at Michigan State probably not going to be enough to get Indiana in when they're now 3-11 in quad 1. But if there was any chance, and you want to believe that, go ahead. It's a free country, and if you beat Purdue, that's another it's a home win, but that's another quad 1 win, and you get those quad 1 wins, and you might sneak your way in. But I'm going to piggyback on Josh's comment too. Just sneaking into tournaments, not Indiana basketball, and that's why we're headed in a new direction. It would be nice for everyone involved, fans included, if maybe we could see them play in there. Maybe some fans don't want to see them play in March Madness and just want to get started. Again, everyone's entitled to their opinion. But we're Assembly Call IU Postgame Show. I'm Brian Tonsoni, and with Bob Moats and Josh Pose. Remember to check out our friends at Home Field Apparel with the promo code HOME23 at checkout to get 15% off your first order. Okay, guys, we'll go to you, Bob, and then Josh and I will close it up here from Assembly Hall. Your last thoughts tonight on this loss to UCLA?
Last thoughts. Yeah, I'll just kind of, just to kind of sum up, it's it does feel, it feels a little less like Groundhog Day. I mean, Coach and I were doing these on Sundays. It was one of those things where we kind of have to like, boy, we're doing, should we just like, voice over some of the voice over different names and different team names and just give the same show that we did the week before. It doesn't feel like tonight was one of those types of nights. But progress is progress, but we just, things have got to get better, and we know that. But I think at the end of the day, we've found we're just where we're at, and at this point, it's a matter of Indiana basketball. We want it to be what it needs to be. Are you guys still there? Okay. I don't know.
Someone decided to not unmute me, so I'll try that again. First, maybe second.
Like,
but
I don't know if I can end the show. I don't know if I can end it.
I think it's deja vu. I wrote about it after the Michigan game. It just feels like it's happening again. Every time it's late in the game, how will Indiana lose it? We all thought it on Tuesday. And it came out the right way. But Indiana, and I'm going to use Mike Woodson's favorite phrase, they just didn't get over the hump. Oh, I just struck a nerve there. But I think that it's true. They can't get over a hump, the barrier, a wall. It's just really tough to see quad one opportunities slip by the wayside here in Assembly Hall, and it happened again tonight.
When you're 26 games into the season, you are who you are, and we're not a really good ball club right now. Good enough to win a few games, good enough to win on the road, but not to win consistently. And someone put our quad one record as embarrassing. Jeffrey, I'm with you on that. It's not what we expect, and hopefully things will turn around real quickly. I will, though, end on a positive note. There was some juice in this building, and it was fun to be in here. Again, only to be disappointed to come up short, and so at least we had that. So that'll do it for today's show. If you want to be part of the show and part of the live chat, make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/assemblycall. And don't forget to go to substack.assemblycall.com to join our free email newsletter. Special thanks to Bob Thompson for the music you hear on the show. Special thanks to John Ringer of rigdesign.com for designing our logo. And thank you for listening. We'll be back again in a week, maybe earlier, to talk some coaching. We're not sure about that yet, but we'll be back soon to talk basketball with you. Until then,
take it from the green light himself. Keep your elbows in, eyes on the rim, and go Hoosiers.
Thank you. Thanks for coming out.
Hey, the show's over. Here I come, Coach Tonsoni.
It's too late. I know it's Valentine's Day, hon, but you're 2 hours away.
$10,000.
You're a little far away, hon. But happy Valentine's to you if you're listening. I don't think you are. Happy Valentine's Day to everyone. Hopefully you have a significant other. Make sure you love them, hug them, tell them everything that they need to hear positive, and enjoy the weekend. And we will be back with you on Sunday. I'm going to end it so I can get going home. Good night, everybody.
Night.